welcome everybody. My name is Kathy, for those of you that don't know me, and I'm co-founder at Eco Femme, and I'm joined with my co-host, Lauren, who's also heading our communications team in Eco Femme. We also have Pranati, who's also been helping put this series together from Eco Femme. And today we're really happy to welcome our three panelists who are, first of all, we have Serena, who is, and actually all our panelists have one way or another been engaged with working in some way or another as ambassadors or grassroots partners with Eco Femme. So we're happy to have Serena with us for the first time in this series. And she's based out of Indore in rural MP, but she's originally from Kerala, I learned today. And yeah, Serena has been a freelance menstrual educator since about 2017, has worked extensively with adolescent girls and women. And she has a lot of experience, I think, working with this audience that we are trying to prepare this sessions to help find ways to serve better. We also have Swastika, who's based in Darjeeling, and she actually is running an NGO called Darjeeling Prerna NGO. Also a menstrual health educator for a long time and has a real passion and commitment to sustainability. And the third panelist is Angana, who's joining us for the third of our has been on every one of our panels so far. And Angana has been working in the field of menstrual health education for a very long time, about 10 years. And quite closely to the project many years ago, and she's also been to our offices in Oroville, and she has works in and heads a project called Project Kel in Lucknow, which really works a lot with games and play as a modality for transformational learning. And she brings that particular kind of approach and perspective to the work that she's also doing around menstrual health education. So welcome our panelists, and welcome all of you who are listening in to this series. Just to give you a little context and heads up of what we're doing and why we're doing it. So we've been sort of finding increasingly through our work at Eco Femme that people and really, first of all, it's a growing landscape of people who want to get into menstrual health education at a grassroots level. And, you know, because it is a fairly new and unformed sector, I would say, we're all very much in a learning curve about how best to deliver content. And we particularly feel that when we're working with women and girls who are from low resource areas, who maybe don't get to access information through the internet, which a lot of people in more urban areas do, there's much more, I think, burden, responsibility and obligation on those of us who are doing the education to really kind of do it well and figure out how to kind of convey difficult concepts to this audience. So this is in a way the kind of crux of what we are wanting to do with this session is build all of our skills and capacities of how to do a better job working with this kind of audience. And we really envision this as a co-learning space, that we're all learners, we're all teachers, and I think everybody has something to say from their experience. So we convened this particular panel based on our felt sense of each of the panelists of having something of value and interest to bring to this topic. And the topic today is actually called Creating a Period Positive Culture and Debunking Myths. And in particular, the myth that period blood is dirty, because this is something that we see prevalent around India, that this idea that there's something wrong with the period blood. And that, of course, is sort of like such a taproot for everything that follows in a menstrual education session. Like if that idea is left unattended to, then it's very difficult to, I think, create, you know, a safe and, you know, and positive context in which the other ideas we're trying to convey around healthy menstruation can be conveyed. So we'll kick off. Yeah. And I'm going to ask, first of all, Serena, if you could get us started here this afternoon. And just to give you a sense of the flow, that we're going to run for about an hour with content from our panelists. We've got a few questions for them. And then we're going to open it up for the last half an hour to to you, the audience, for participants to ask questions of any of the panelists so that we really have a maximum amount of time to hear your voices as well. So to start with, Serena, could you share a bit about, from your experience, how you create a safe space to talk about menstruation and culture? How do you get into this topic?
Yes, I'll begin with, I hail from Kerala, but I have born and brought up in MP. I've been born and brought up here. So in MP, basically, there are many tribes. There are many different cultures. There are many caste and subcaste in MP. So it's sort of, and especially with the rural communities, it's too diverse to get into the cultural aspect. What I basically do is, like, I basically go for the resource persons first. All right, and just to start off with, I'll just share a small presentation. So just let me know if you cannot see the screen. I'm starting the screen share. 1 minute. Okay, so I need there's this message called host disabled participant screen sharing. Praniti, can you please help me share the screen?
I can make you a co-host. I'll do that.
Yeah, I think it should be helpful.
Yeah. Yes. Good idea. You know, we could do that. I'll also do it for Pranati. Yes. Learning on the job. Yes. Yes.
Yes, I think I've got it.
Yep. Looks good.
Can you see my screen?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Can you, everyone, are you able to see?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So regarding this, so I'll stick to my topic, which is how do I create a safe space? How do I create safe space, and how do I ensure that the students are comfortable, the girls are comfortable? Okay. So, so the first thing I do, the very first thing I do, since I go to different villages, and I've actually covered around 40 villages in Madhya Pradesh. So what do I do is, like, I first collaborate with the Anganwadis, because in MP, the problem of malnutrition is huge, and Anganwadis work with not only children but with adolescent girls also, because they have this idea that if the girls are healthy, the adolescent girls are healthy, only then they'll be able to give birth to healthy children later in their life after marriage. So they get this iron tablets. They have like small programs where they have a like adolescent day program and all. All that initiatives are basically from the government. Anganwadi is a government wing. Okay. So what do I do? This is like the part which is prior to the session. Before that, I go and talk. Like in the picture, you can see I'm talking to these Anganwadi ladies and discussing and giving them complete clarity about what I'm going to do in the session. What is it about? Where I come from? Which is the company that I'm working with? So sort of building a trust and a rapport building happens here. All right. So this is the first phase. Why Anganwadi is because Anganwadis are very close to the areas adolescent girls. They have the exact number of the adolescent girls present in that particular village or the area. They know the knowledge, the attitudes of the girls, how they take menstruation and stuff like that. They know how many girls are like literate, how many are illiterate. So accordingly, I have to improvise in my sessions. So far, have I been clear to like everyone? Can you just give a thumbs up?
Yes.
Great, thanks. Next what I do is like, and I ensure for the session that there are no males around. And this Eco Femme, should be there to make the space more comfortable for the girls. So this I ensure prior. I have the meeting with the Anganwadi people, and this is one important criteria actually. Next is what I do in the session. Now coming towards the session, when I take the session, I ensure that all the girls, so basically all these girls are either they know each other, they'll be mostly knowing each other. So what I ask them is like form groups, okay? We'll do groups, and we'll also, I also try and do gamification. Gamification is a great tool to engaging students. And especially like, for example, I just throw quizzes around. So I start with adolescents. Like, are you able to see this?
Yes,
Yeah.
a little bit closer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, I give them these, like I just show them these papers. Like I do not jump to the topic of menstruation in the first go itself. I first talk about adolescence, like what is adolescence, what happens during the adolescence time and everything. So through pictures like these, so men go through such things, like men have muscles, they get shoulders broadened, and I asked them basically what happens to women. Women have breasts, they get like they have a more nice like curves and all in their body, they go through a lot of changes. Then again, what happens to men, they have facial hair. um this one is then the pubic hair during adolescence. And especially why pubic hair is I sort of like try and tell them that it must be irritating that we have pubic hair and all, but I give them this example, like what happens when you hit a person on a head, especially a bald guy. So what happens, like he'll be like more in pain, like if you hit a bald guy's head. So but if you hit a person who has hair on the head, they won't feel the pain as much as the bald guy feels. So this is what exactly the pubic hair does. It protects our intimate part, so that whenever you fall or anything happens, like pubic hair is there to help you basically. So I take these examples like that. All right. Again, like what happens again for the boys, voice changes. For girls, there's no change in voice and all. Then major change in adolescence is beginning of menstruation. Then what happens, what else happens is height increases. So all this I do in a form of quiz, and on the board, like as you can see on the in the picture, like on the board I'll put all the team's name. I also ask them to give a nice group to their name, okay, funny names and all. So they in some of my experiences, they give like really funny names. Some girls kept their name as what Jhandu Bam. So some girls kept their name as like I don't know what was that, Sakhi. Like some are nice names, some are like funny names. So it's like, and just to make it fun, they do this. And then they are given points accordingly in the during the session and during my quizzes. Like I basically go with the quiz. So that's how I do. Coming to the next, to the culture part especially. Um, so also, yeah, I also missed a point. Like before this, like I also try and understand that. So if the girls are 10th passed, like if they've passed 10th standard, they will definitely have been through this topic of reproduction in their science textbooks and all. So I asked them like, did your teacher teach you well about reproduction? How much did you learn from there? What was your experience? And mostly the answers what I've got is, no, Didi, the teachers are very shy. They don't talk about this. They'll just go through the chapter or they just read it. They won't explain us anything in detail. And this is the feedback I've received after my sessions. Like, Didi, you are the one who's like talking so openly about it. We didn't know these things and all that. So this is one thing. Um, so yeah, coming to the culture part. So understanding a community's culture is understanding basically their belief system, their religion, what medical practices also they go through, what mannerisms they have, and what are their laws, customs, all that. Again, I am not the best person who's like, so everywhere, especially in MP with different tribes and different communities, it's very very diverse here. So again, I take the help of Anganwadi workers. Sometimes I try and ensure that the Anganwadi work is present there itself in the session, so that if at all I get stuck in the session, I'll just ask her like, what is this, what is she talking about, and stuff like that. So again, I would like just I would like to know if everyone's following me. Just can you please give a thumbs up? Okay, great. Thank you. So Also, one or two examples I would like to share about the culture thing. Like I've said before, also, here a lot of girls, even today, my parents are doctors and they also treat rural, rural people. So my mother is a gynecologist. So she also talks about this, that ladies still do not want to touch their granddaughter who has just given birth to a child, and they do not touch the granddaughter because she will be bleeding after the childbirth, and they do not want to touch the cloth and all that. They have a lot of reservations even today in a lot of, like, what do I say, even the creamy layer of the caste systems, they have a lot of reservations towards this. It's still a taboo even today. um and so honestly, this is still a challenge even for me when I try and understand their culture. So the best thing is I do is, like, I just take resource persons, like whoever is available there, and just have a prior conversation with them. Hey, just tell me what is the culture here, what are the girls' attitudes. In the session also, I try and answer, like here, just to know that culture. We firstly, we need to be very, very curious, like ask questions from a space of understanding, like, hey, can you just tell me what is this? I don't know about this, can you teach me? And definitely there's going to be friction. I have faced this a lot of times, like girls are hesitant, they don't share much. So I share my story first. I'll share my story, and this helps the girls to open up. Mostly what I've seen is, the girls who open up, I tend to give them marks also, like the gamification part. I use the gamification here again. I tend to give them marks and like try and encourage them. I have seen this very much, very prominently, like in my sessions as a facilitator. I feel whenever I have a very pleasant demeanor, like I smile and I sort of keep the energy going, and sort of understanding the mob's energy is also very, very important. Some in some sessions the girls are very dull. They are like, oh god, who is she, what is she here for? So like I have to sort of get that energy, and I have to sort of get the ball rolling. So I do that through games. So what games I play with them is, um, one game I play with them is like, just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 number, and they'll start saying that number, and every fifth number you have to clap your hands. So like any game, like I just come up with games for this. And I also try and monitor my energy according to the mob's energy. So if the girls are quite reserved, I also try and share, empathize with them, share my experience, like what I also went through. If the girls are a little open, especially if they're sitting with their friends, they tend to be open, and they tend to have a lot of group discussions. And also group discussion is one more area where, my things work well. I'll just give them few questions and ask, like, just discuss this among your group, among your friends, and give me answers. I'll be asking you questions. And again, I use gamification. I give marks to them, and I'm like, yay, Chandu Bam team win this game. I mean, they won. And then, or any other team's name, like whatever, like games. I mean, this is how I go about, basically. And yeah, I think that's all. Any questions, anything, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Serena. It was a great intro. I think I might hold the questions to the end. And if you've got questions, though, and you're burning, put them in the chat box and we'll keep them till the end. And I'd like to ask Swastika if you could continue on from what Serena has shared, and maybe just tell us, like, for example, when you're confronted with this idea of period blood as being dirty in a session, how do you respond to that? What sort of do you do to kind of address this idea when it comes up in a session that man, period blood is dirty? Would you like to share some of your experience around that?
Yeah, sure, Kathy. So whenever we start any sessions, what I make sure is that we don't actually go there and like start saying that, menstrual blood is dirty and all that, but we tend to first get responses from them and then try to know what are their views about it, like, and for this thing, we do a small activity where we give a chit of paper to like each and every participants, and we have a set of around, say, about like 10 questions, and these questions are like just facts, like, just basic facts about menstruation. And one of the question is whether they consider menstrual blood as dirty or not, and then we maximum, most of the time, what we like get response from them is like 90 or 80% of them say that menstrual blood is dirty, right? And then slowly, so this thing, it comes from them only, and then we try to this uh, like the note of which is there, like, which their thoughts, which they already think that, because it has already been imbibed in them, that since for a very long time, like, it's deeply rooted in their minds that menstrual blood is dirty. So we try and slowly we dismantle the knot from there onwards, and we ask questions like saying, why do you feel it's dirty? And then we like get many responses, because they say that when you are menstruating, then you're not supposed to touch a plant, because the plant gets like, it dies out. Or you're not supposed to go to the kitchen, because the menstrual blood which comes monthly is the way of body is cleansing itself, and like, that is how the like, blood is impure. So that is the responses that we get from them. And then slowly we say, like, why do we consider? Because, and then we try to link this menstrual blood with the reproductive system, like what is the purpose of this blood, and what is the function of this blood, and how it is like, essential for a life, because you can't you are not here, and everyone is here and alive today because of menstrual blood. And there is no life without menstruation. So slowly we try to like, link between the reproductive thing, the how the nutrients it provides to a fertilized egg, and the like, anatomy, the reproductive system, and the blood. We try to link it, and that is how slowly like, then it slowly comes out, like that, saying that menstrual blood is like, it's pure, and why it should not be considered like, a dirt, or it's bad or something like that. And we also like play different games, like, for instance, one game what we do is we do in a mixed group. Sometimes it's like students, sometimes it's like, a middle-aged woman. So what we generally do is from the group of participants around, say, 20 to 30, so we form a group of 5 or 6, and then one person from the group will have to get like, blindfolded, and the other members from the team will have to like, misguide her, saying like, to reach the end of this room, and or give a particular task, like, but in a like misguided way. We tell them to give like improper, like, directions. And then whereas like, and the last member from the group will not participate in the game, and the 4 members who are there will misguide the person who is blindfolded. And then like, then end of the game, like, at the end of the game, what we do is like, we ask the experience of the blindfolded person, like, how did you feel, like, what was your reaction? And then she says like, she gets a lot of directions and instructions, saying to do this and that, and where she was confused and didn't know what to do. And then at last, when we tell the last person, like, to guide her properly, and then she easily achieves a task of going there. And similarly, I connect to the point saying that, as a when you are seeking any advices on like, menstruation, like especially when you are young, so always go to a person like who has like much knowledge about it, and don't like, hear and listen to others, like, they might misguide you. So always follow for correct and appropriate and like, good instruction, and that is how like you'll be able to gain a good knowledge about it. So these are like some examples which and some games which we try to do it in the like, the awareness sessions. And also like as I think Serena was also mentioning, like, before going directly into this thing, we also talk about slowly, like, how does your, like, puberty, we talk about puberty and how the changes, like, gradually comes, like, and then menstruation start, and it's very, very, like, natural thing. And when we ask them, like, about the taboos, like, we ask them only, like, what are the taboos they follow, what are the practices that they follow during menstruation, and they, like, see a lot of things, like, like not going to the kitchen, like, not worshiping, not going to the temples. And then we ask them, like, what is the main reason for not doing this, and they themselves, like, they say, we don't know. And then we say, like, see, we don't know about it, and there are, like, no facts also, like, that we should be doing this and that, but we just have been following it so blindly. And then, like, it's time, like, we should change our perspective of menstruation. So this is how we slowly try to break the ice, and then get into the topic, dive into the topic that, menstruation blood is not clear, it's not dirty.
Dirty.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Swastika. That was fantastic. And I'm enjoying very much hearing the games that, both you and Serena have been mentioning, of different ways to also do it, but in a way that's to challenge these ideas, but in a way that's fun and really teaching in a non-threatening way. I'm going to then invite Angana, who, knows a lot about games, because games have formed the core of her teaching strategies with Project Kel, to talk to us a little bit about, for example, if you have any sort of insights around where this idea, for example, that menstrual blood is dirty, like how it gets interpreted, and what's your experience of the ways in which this gets interpreted? It may be different sort of narratives around that from different sort of cultures or across religion. Where is it coming from, and how do you see that translating in people's attitudes and behaviors? And just help us understand a little bit about this whole, like, what's this idea of period blood being dirty? What's it really rooted in from your understanding?
I'm a student of gender. I've done my master's in gender studies, and my work is a lot on gender, and I'm very fascinated by perceptions, what people think and how they think and why they think that way. And so I feel the entire idea around menstrual blood is a lot to do with the gender politics that we're playing in our society. And while I was studying for my master's, we also had this huge discussion about how the shivling that the Hindu community believes in. At the moment, most of the shivlings, it's supposed to be the penis of Lord Shiva. And it seems the oldest of these shivlings that you find, there also used to be a base which was representative of the vagina. So it seems a long time back, fertility, like male and female body, were both attributed for the world to go on, and both the reproductive organs were respected and prayed to. And over the years, it seems how the politics and dynamics of gender started coming in. And now we just have the shivling without the base really being as visible as it used to be in the olden days. So that actually got me thinking about the disparity that came in, and how childbearing is what takes the world forward, but we consider women as the weaker sex and the one not so important gender in the equation. Okay, so that is one thing where it all comes from. This is my perception of how things would have evolved. I wanted to add a little bit to the previous question that Swastika was discussing about the menstrual blood being dirty. So one thing that we do is, so last session I shared about the story that I use about a room full of eggs, and then this dark alley, and then you come to the playground. So I keep the drawing on the board while I'm discussing other stuff. And then when we reach this part, when we reach the last section where we are myth busting or talking about social positioning of periods, we go back to the drawing, and then we go back to the question that, so how many elements did we discuss that comes out from a woman's body when she's menstruating? And it almost always helps if we have a married teacher in the room, because we are outsiders and we are people from the city, so we might have knowledge, or we might have intentions that the village people might not really like. So sometimes there's this disconnect as well. So we asked the teacher of the group of girls or boys that does a pregnant woman menstruate? And the women says no. And then we ask the girls, do you believe this? The girls said yes. And then we start asking, why do you think that happens? And then we go back to the question that again I shared a little bit about last year in the last discussion about how pooping is actually the waste of the body coming out and periods is not, because everything that comes out during the periods is getting utilized while a woman is pregnant. So then we're using the same story to help our group understand how the different elements that are coming out during periods are getting used by a pregnant woman. So this means that every human being in this world is made out of their mother's periods. And this is very heavy pregnant pause that happens because everyone is baffled, because what they're hearing is very difficult to believe, but they know they have no way to say anything different from what I'm saying. And that moment is one of my most favorite parts of all my interactions, because there's no answer, there is complete silence, and they're all thinking. And that's fantastic. And it's very, very difficult for people to understand. We go back to the first story again. And because it is so much easier to talk about samosa and gully and lane and swimming pool of blood and all, we use their language itself to re-understand how periods happen, and then re-understand how a pregnant woman's body is holding the baby. So that helps people think about this question. And I also add in sometimes, one thing I strongly believe in, that yes, there is an agenda we carry. It is also important that we speak the language of the group we are talking to. And this I learned the hard way. When I started out working as a menstrual educator, I strongly believe that what I believe in is correct. And women need this, girls need me to come and talk to them. So I had this kind of a savior complex when I was entering communities. And that actually I realized left very little space for anyone to think or ask questions that were different from what I was saying. And I realized eventually that was unfair. So one memory I just can't get out of my head. I think it was either the end of 2016 or beginning of 2017. I was doing a series of workshops just outside of Lucknow, and they were all in rural schools. And there was one particular school where every girl had their head covered. Like, it was not just a Muslim dominated one, but even Hindu girls, the culture of veiling themselves was really prominent even inside the school. And that was one of the more difficult groups to get them active and get them running around and open themselves up in the session. But there was this one point where we started talking about period blood not being dirty, and one of the weakest, meekest, shyest, coyest looking girl, she just started fighting. Like, she was literally fighting, and she hadn't spoken the entire time in the first 4 hours that I was there. And I was completely shaken that this girl, who has not found a voice to contribute in an activity that was going to make her feel good, is voicing so passionately how I am here to ruin their thinking, and I am promoting ideas which make some parents and teachers a liar. And I completely felt that emotion. That was something that I had not thought of before. I was coming from a very privileged perspective that I know what I am saying and I'm here to save, and you have to listen. So I think that experience really opened me up to trying to use a language that works. So there are two things that I do that has worked for me 100% times. And I personally don't believe in those thoughts, but it works. So whenever I'm working with a group of women, I get very filmy, very Hindi Bollywood movie type. And I say, do you think that a mother's body that feeds the child first will actually create a child with dirty blood? And it works, because women they know that they will never do something not right for their child. They will never give something dirty to their child. And then there's this whole idea of motherhood where the idea of sacrifice is celebrated. I find the thought a little problematic, yes, but it's helping me have the conversation where mothers are willing to now think about the fact that probably it's not dirty blood. Because if it is dirty blood, that's what I've used to create my fetus, my child, for the 9 months that I was holding onto the child. And another thing that works for me very, very well is I try to figure out how God-fearing and God-loving a group is. So again, personally, I align as an atheist, but I find that using God is really effective. And so I say stuff like, do you believe that God has created the world? And everyone says yes. Do you believe that God has created men and women and everyone else who exists in between? Yes. Do you think any of us is born outside of God's will? And no, that doesn't happen. So do you think God will give something to half the population that is going to drive them away from God itself? No, my God will never do this. And that is so powerful. It works because they believe in God. So they know that God will not give them something that's going to shoo them away. So therefore, God has not given us dirty blood, but God has given us periods. So now let's start thinking if period blood is dirty blood or not. And yeah, so these two have worked for me without fail every single time. But I would also like to add a little note that you have to bring theatrics into it. You, like how I was talking very dramatically, it has to come in because I've transferred this information also to some of my colleagues who work with me in my organization, and they've struggled. They've said the exact same thing with no reaction, and the entire thing has fallen flat because you have to be theatric about what you're saying. At the same time, you have to hold the group with you so that they are following you for everything that you're saying. Yeah, more flair, correct, Pranati. You have to hold the group to move along with your thought, because if you've left the group loose for even like 2 seconds, this is going to fail, because this sounds very dumb when someone is coming and talking about God and motherhood and all, like mothers being sacrificial and all. So yeah, so this really helps. And another thing that has helped me in my mindset as a menstrual educator, and also has helped me gain more buy-in from my participants, is my ability, like I'm trying to focus on letting go. Like initially I started out by believing that I can and I will get 100% impact, which is absolutely unreal, that I've realized over the years. So instead of trying to convince my group that I'm interacting with, this is what needs to be done, this is what you need to believe in, I started to share information and then I leave it upon them. That I've shared what I know and you know what you know. And now it is your time for you to decide what you want to take up and what you want to believe in. And if you have questions, then we're free to, like, we'll be happy to answer. And we also do a lot of different games to help women, girls, and boys be more open to the entire delivery and to the entire content that we are providing. Yeah. I think one very important thing to remember is also what Serena mentioned, that how a group reacts is also very dependent on the demeanor of the facilitator. Like a lot of facilitators come in with a lot of conviction, but they are extremely uncomfortable in saying the word vagina. Like you need to be able to say vagina and periods the same way you would have said ice cream and cupcakes. Like there shouldn't be a change in your voice, because that change in your voice gets noticed. When you are the only one standing and talking and there are 20 other people staring at you, they're listening to you, they're trying to understand who you are, why you are here, what are you trying to tell us, they catch everything. So our body language, even if maybe there has our voice has not shaken at all, but there was a change in our body language. Maybe our legs, we were comfortably standing first and then our legs come closer. So the body language is also very impactful in how we are able to leave an impact in a group.
Super, thank you. Also for those very clear illustrative examples of how you really kind of, I mean, to say 100% success rate, that's a big statement, and I get it. I think that's quite, you know, really pulling the rug at the core of some of these ideas. I'm aware of the time, and I'd hope to have sort of 20 minutes on the next 2 questions. We've got about 20 minutes left before we open up for Q&A. So I'm going to do this a little bit differently and just invite you 3 panelists to just pick up on anything that you feel maybe wasn't part of the question that you were assigned. But I'd love to just go now a little bit more freestyle into what are some of the examples or experiences that you've been able to challenge this idea of menstrual blood as being dirty in a way that really invited more curiosity, more openness, and really led to a shift. If any of you would like to share a bit more about some specific experiences or examples of how you brought this kind of room from feeling like, oh, you know, this is really dirty and disgusting, to genuine curiosity and openness, I'd love to just hear more of those examples for the next 20 minutes, and then we'll open up to the rest of the participants to come in with your questions or maybe your own examples to that. So whoever of you would like to go, Swastika, Serena, or Angana, just Serena, off you go. You're on.
So hi again, everyone. I think in the chat box, Neha also wants to share. So should Neha go first or should I go first? Praniti?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I see you also. Maybe you go first.
I think,
Serena, 'cause you're
yeah,
on, and
30
then-
minutes we have after this. Yep. At 5:30, we open it up. Yep. You can go ahead, Serena.
I can go ahead. Okay. So one example that I actually forgot to mention, what I give for this menstrual blood not being dirty is the example of food. Like I asked this to the girls that when food is kept outside, like after you cook the food, you keep your food outside, it interacts with the air and the bacteria forms. And if you keep it for hours together, it's going to become stale and dirty. So the same happens with our blood. Our blood is basically clean inside. It is just unused blood, which is there for like for the baby, which forms like the bed for the baby. If the baby is not there, so it has to come out. So when it comes out, then it interacts with the air, and then it becomes a little smelly, and the bacteria forms, and then therefore the blood is termed as dirty, but actually it is not dirty. So like food is not dirty until it is stale. uh, the same way blood is not dirty. And I would really ask you all to please add into this, like what do you think about this example? Like, is it okay to give such examples? Because I've been using this example a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Serena. I'd like to just keep going with the panelists for the moment, and then let's really get into this conversation with the participants and see how they feel about the examples that you've all
Sure.
offered. Maybe they have some of their own sort of suggestions of what's really worked well. But I'd like to just give a few more minutes at least to the rest of the panelists to say anything that you haven't already on this topic, some of your good, you know, what you found really works and how you can really shift the whole sort of tone and openness to engage, you know, the mind shift around dirty menstrual blood. So if any of you have
Okay,
anything
so
else, yeah.
yeah, Kathy, I have an example. Like in one of the trainings, we had a health worker from the government who was participating, like was one of the participants in the training. And then we were talking about this menstrual blood being dirty or not. And then discussions were like, she was of the view that menstrual blood was dirty at first. And then we had the session, and then we discussed about it in detail and all that. And after the session, like one fine day, she was convinced, that menstrual blood is not dirty. And then we told her, let's try it from our own experiences. And then one day she came up, and then she said, while I was menstruating, I planted a flower. And then it's like, nothing happened. It was all good. And this was one example which really worked, and I think it's from your own practical experiences, like we can challenge these taboos. Like planting, we can, like, not at once, and especially this cultural thing of worshiping God, and then doing puja and all, like may not happen at overnight. It may not happen because it's like I said, is deeply rooted. And we can't actually start doing puja or going to the temples from the very next day. But small other things, like going to the kitchen, preparing food, and like experimenting things such as like gardening, going to the garden while you're menstruating, or watering plants. I think the small things can really can come up, and then you can see it for yourself whether it gets spoiled or not. Yeah, that's what I wanted to share. Thanks.
Something that, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Angana. Yep, you're on.
So something that we share is we try to bring out from different elements and discussions within the group, so that we don't need to bring in the idea that there are myths. It is for the group to figure out. Something that we do is we ask how many of you feel a rise in your bodily temperature when you have fever. So everyone hands go up. How many of you feel cold during winter season? Everyone's hands go up. How many of you feel like Like you've got a burn if you touch something hot. Everyone's hand goes up. Okay, how many of your parents have asked you to not drink something cold during your periods? So half the class's hand goes up. Then I ask the other half, what have you been told? So some of them say we've been told nothing. The other half says that we've been told that, yeah, it is okay to drink chai and coffee and nothing changes. And so how many of you are not allowed to go to go to the kitchen in your house while you're on your periods? So again, I've never yet found a group where every single girl or woman have raised their hands for this. And almost every time, because this happens because either that family does not have a woman, like the mother or the grandmother is dead, or lives separately with their family and the girl stays with the father, or in a family full of male members. So then there is no option. And then I bring back the question, how many of you have had the option to not let your temperature rise when you have had your period, when you have been down with fever, and no one's hand goes up? So that's what I use to bring out this point, that what is when you have fever, your temperature goes up. That's a fact. That is true for every single person in this world, no matter where that person lives. Exactly, within your own village, within your own town, in your own classroom, there are some girls who've been told that you cannot drink anything hot during periods. Another set of girls who've been told you should drink something hot during their periods. So that helps bring out this point, that there are certain things that are facts and true for everyone around, and certain things are based on convenience and practice. And then there's this common practice everywhere, almost in UP at least, where most girls are told not to shampoo their head, like they shouldn't have a head bath during their periods. And the reasons are, there's a huge range of reasons. So girls are told you will get tetanus if you wash your hair. You will never be able to get pregnant if you wash your hair. So then when someone said tetanus, so that was like the best thing for us to do. Like, let's Google. You have a smartphone. It's not something I'm saying. What is tetanus? And then we have that explanation for them to also see that you are randomly putting together words. And this is not like, so we don't share our perception that you are randomly putting together words. We let them know what tetanus means. We let them know what a head bath is. Like they already know what a head bath is. And then we ask them to put 2 and 2 together. What does this mean? Does this make any sense? You get tetanus when because of iron, something that enters your blood and all. Trying to get that connection so that young girls are also encouraged to ask questions. The whole idea is to use the information they have to help them understand the need to ask more questions, so that they feel that, one, they can ask questions, two, they need to know answers and not just follow blindly what has been told to them. And also stress a lot on how history is written by human beings and how it can be differently written depending from different perspectives. So also bring up this topic of a head bath, that how maybe about like 200 years do you think there were bathrooms that everyone had? And everyone says no. And where do you think people used to take bath? Answer is that you used to take bath in the rivers, or maybe in secluded areas around the rivers. And what kind of hairstyles that women back then have? So almost everyone says that very long, very thick hair. So when you have very long, very thick hair, you don't have a shower, you don't have a bucket, you're filling water, there's no mug. So you're putting your head down and you're washing your head, and already you're in pain. So just trying to get in some more angles of why a few practices might have been started to benefit women, so that they can get some rest and they can they can feel the pain a little less than what they do otherwise. But how that has been distorted, as if women are dirty and they need to sit in a particular room. So I think last session also brought back this bit that I use about the vagina being a drain. So I bring back that thing again. So do you really think that your vagina is a drain and you're getting all the dirt out of your body? And if you are a drain, then you're a dirty thing. Will you go and sleep on a dried out drain because it does not have any dirt flowing through it? And the answer is no. So if you're dirty, then you are dirty. You're a dirty person completely. How does this work that for 1 week you're dirty and you're not supposed to do the things you're supposed to do, but for the other 3 weeks in a month, you are clean and able to do everything? So then just throw questions at them so that they also try to seek answers, and also they understand that yes, you can question.
Okay, so I'm thinking got a few more minutes. I don't know if you'd like to add anything, Swastika, and then maybe we'll have just a few sort of weaving together comments and then open it up for questions. Is there anything you want to add that hasn't been said yet, Swastika, from your side? Or
I think I'll add later, like it's not coming right now.
okay, then I'm going to just invite Lauren, who I've been watching her writing some interesting thoughts down as we've been listening. She's really good at weaving threads. So maybe you'd share a few thoughts that are going through your mind.
That's a great segue, Kathy. No, this idea of threads, like, it's always so reassuring and helpful to see the themes that emerge and are consistent from everybody's experiences. And this idea of threads, Swastika, I really like how you referred to myths as knots. And there's something to untangle, because that's really kind of a patient process and looking at different angles and how we can enter that conversation. And what do you just gently tug or pull or... And I think that was consistent with all of you, like Swastika, Serena, and Angana, that there's this kind of gentle approach of how can I restory in a way that is not challenging, that actually may even align with some existing beliefs around, for example, motherhood or faith and beliefs around God. So what beliefs can I work with? And in a way, then it's letting the facts speak for themselves. And it seems to me that this is the effective approach, rather than going, I'm going to debunk a myth, which can maybe fall into a savior mentality or a judgmental kind of approach. It's more, what facts can I present that actually will debunk the myth without me debunking it? And so I think, what beliefs can I work with? What facts can I work with? And then you also gave the good example, what lived experiences can I use? And also, Serena, I think you mentioned the medical health worker, like what lived experiences actually exist in this room that are facts that will actually create some curiosity and challenge people's thinking, but without feeling challenged. Yeah, I think, and then my big takeaway is also like, it's that rather than convincing, it's sharing. I think that's kind of like the mantra when it comes to anything around myths and taboos. Sharing facts, sharing stories. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you. So with those sort of just seed ideas, let's open up now for Q&A from those of you. And maybe I'd like to start with Neha, because I know you've had a question on your mind and you raised your hand a long time ago. So would you want to get the Q&A started, and then we'll open up to whoever, and you can just raise your hands as we do on Zoom. So Neha, over to you.
Oh, we can't hear you. You're off mute, but I still can't hear you. Maybe computer audio or... No. I'll give you a thumbs up when we can hear.
Does anybody else, meanwhile, while Neha's sorting out her technique, have anything you want to sort of...
If you have too many issues, Neha, maybe you can type. I know that's not ideal, but just as a backup.
Now you can hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Actually, I think might be earphones might be a problem.
Yes.
Exactly. It's a very good session today. I interacted with you all, and I'm very impressed. I'm very excited even to hear all the stories and all how everyone interact with the community, and what all games we can play with community and make them more interactive. Similarly, I have some experience regarding the blood is impure or not pure. And I think when I interact with community, and it's a very important question that I used to emphasis on. Because with community, I first ask them, they believe what they believe is the blood is pure or impure. Generally, everyone answer it is an impure blood, and all the myths and taboos regarding that, they started interacting accordingly. And similarly, all the stories came out from them. And as the session goes on, I say, ki, do you know from where the blood is coming out? What is the process behind it? And why you believe in that blood is dirty? So they have no answer to that. So with keep going the session, moving the session forward, I start to explain the process, that first week what happened in first week, then another week, then third week, and then fourth week, and then related to like they have when they have guessed what they do. So similarly, the body when during the process periods, the body is preparing for a baby, and when a guest come in their home, they prepare food, and similarly body prepare food and collect some vitamins and best things in a part of their uterus for the guest, like the baby. And they are preparing for that. Okay, body doesn't know that you are mature enough, you are married or not married, but if you are you're having a periods, that means the body is preparing for baby. So they like that I move the conversation, and then in the end I say that whenever the guest doesn't come, what do you do for that food? So they say, "Ki we distribute to our neighbors, and we keep it for next day, or we eat it slow." But some different answers come. Similarly, the body what happens, that if the baby doesn't come, then the body release that food in the form of blood. So can that blood from which the baby will form, can be it can be impure? So they the answer comes from the community itself. Okay? No, it can't be possible. The baby is the purest form and we love our baby, and that whole you know, conversation came to a positive thing, and they believe that the blood is pure. And one more incident that happened to me, recently, a community, I was dealing with a community of 30 women. One lady entered the room and she sat near the door. She doesn't mix up with the community. And when I asked, so she said that I am going to the periods and I will not mingle with the girls. So I said, okay, you can sit. And if the conversation, after the conversation, you feel that the blood is pure, then you can come and sit with us. So after whole session, silently she raised and she mingled with the group of the community and joined everyone in the conversation in the session. And that was a very good incident that more motivate me to deliver this kind of sessions with them. And regarding myths and taboos, basically I normally use stories. Some stories like what basically hit on their belief system. So there are many three set of stories that we used to link with them. And after the stories, the answer immediately come from them. So this way, the conversation and the session on myth and taboo is the best part. I think I enjoyed in all this session. Okay, this is all from my side.
Thank you, Neha. That was great. Definitely another good value addition. Sorry, we just got momentarily bumped off the call, but we're glad you're all still there. Anybody else would like to bring something to the topic from your experience,
Kathy,
or some questions to the panelists?
There's one thing I wanted to share from one of my sessions, not directly related to period bloods being dirty, but it's how I start talking about UTIs and STIs. I forgot to mention this the last time. Is it a good point to bring it in? Yeah. Okay. So I asked the girls. This thought actually occurred to me after I heard Neha's, that I start by asking the girls, where do you think the period blood comes from? So there are all kinds of answers. And then I go back to my buffalo head theory and I say it comes from the mountains. I just do this bit and I leave it on the board. And what does this remind you of? And this is the scenery. Like, exactly, this is the scenery. There are two mountains and then there is a sun over here. And then I get all devilish and I say, now I will ruin nature for you. I give this disclaimer and then I do this.
Surprise!
Yeah. They hate it, but they love it completely. And there's this really loud giggle because I just ruined the mountains and the sun for them. I said, this is where your periods come from. And then through this, I draw this opening here. Then I start talking about, I go back to the first conversation that I start my sessions with, that what all leaves a human body. And then I narrow down my question to what are the different things that gets out from between our legs. So then you get peeing and pooping and farts and periods and baby and white discharge. The entire list is out. So then before telling how many holes are there, the next thing I ask them is, so there are 5 things that are coming out from between our legs. How many holes do you think you have over here? And the answer is almost always 1 or 2. Even grandmothers that I've worked with do not know they have 3 holes between their legs. And so the answer is always 1 or 2. Otherwise, the other extreme is 5 holes. There are 5 holes between our legs. So again, I take them to this image of a shower. Do you think we have a shower over here that sprinkles out water or whatever you want all the time? So then I use this drawing to talk about the 3 holes. And again, how should you clean yourself after every time you pee? And how should you clean, like the movement of the hand, it should go from the front to the back and not back to the front. So having these kind of conversations also helps open up their bodies and their minds to having a deeper conversation on self-care, like the physical part of self-care. So yeah, I forgot to share this last time. I just thought I'd bring.
That's great. I love it. Thank you. And just to provide context, because you mentioned buffalo head, like, so in the last session, it was really about like, so how do you exactly teach reproductive anatomy? Because it's quite technical, and how can that lead to then teaching menstrual cycle tracking? And and quite a few participants shared how they'll say, just so, for example, that's like a buffalo head, and that's how you can use the different parts, because you know the buffalo head has horns. So there's the ovaries, the fallopian tubes, and then it goes to the womb, which says is like a samosa shape, and that's the buffalo head reference. And we also have that session recorded too, if anyone's interested. Great. Thank you. Anybody else want to add something to this really fun and fascinating conversation
about scenery?
Or stories from your own experience, if you've been we want to pick up on? No, maybe if you have your doubts about maybe from different cultural backgrounds, whether it's as easy as they're making it sound to sort of push back against some of these myths. I mean, I must say it was something that I was sort of initially surprised about, because when I first started doing this work, I was always told that, that this was almost like a kind of rock hard sort of belief, an idea that menstrual blood is dirty and that would be pushed back on. It hasn't really been my experience either, but I'm wondering if other people are doubting it, or if they've experienced more resistance to challenging these ideas. Now's a really good time to to bring your concerns, your doubts, your confidence in the approaches that are being suggested, anything at all.
I think I've got one example to share. Can I go ahead?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I talk about the cloth pad, So girls do have this question that and especially when I did the MNE, girls said that we use the cloth, that it's good and all, but the stains remain there. Okay, and there's this commercial ad that that's I think of Ariel, the detergent, where they say daag achhe hote hain. That means stains are good. So I sort of try and use that ad, and I say that, hey, listen, this is just the cloth pad, the pigment. This is just the pigmentation. It has nothing to do with dirt. When you have cleaned it, when you've washed it, when you've put it under the sun, sun is the natural sanitizer. And after that, if you still see the stains, it is just the color. It's just pigmentation. It's nothing dirty, and it's nothing you should be afraid of, and it's very healthy to reuse those pads again. So I go back to that Ariel ad and I say that daag achhe hote hain, like that. I mean that dirt is good, sort of. Want to share.
No, thanks for bringing that aspect in, actually, because that's another good example of how this idea of it being dirty can also be an obstacle in the way for women to consider, or girls to consider, using something like a cloth pad. So I think that's very much part of the conversation as well. Thank you. There's a question that's come from Neha in the chat box, is how to do this with small girls below the age of 12. Would anyone like to have a go at Angana? Raise your hand.
Yeah, thanks for asking this, Neha. We have started doing our workshops the last about, I think, a couple of years before COVID happened. So before, maybe around 2017-ish, we started working with girls as young as 9 and above. And so again, the way we go forward is that Project Khel, the organization, has a master curriculum of what all we would prefer to deliver in the perfect session, most perfect session that we get, and there's never enough time, like if we try to stick to that. And so how we go about it is that with the youngest girls, we understand that we are probably the first set of people who are talking to them, and it's going to be very difficult because a lot of it also needs to be left to imagination. Because they have definitely seen that their bodies look different from their mothers or the older women bodies, but a lot more that we would probably start discussing in terms of what happens during puberty is going to be left to imagination. So that understanding needs to be there, and there needs to be extra efforts in appearing as non-threatening as possible, because so we could always start off with a very basic session on what are the changes that you see, what is different between your body and your mother's body. So we try to go about this activity by using stick figures, because then no one feels limited by their drawing or their expression capacities. So stick figures are the easiest to draw. So we draw 3 stick figures of a 5-year-old, 15-year-old, and a 30-year-old. And then we ask, does a 5 and a 15-year-old's body look the same? What is different? And that is when we start with very obvious ones, that the breasts are bigger and the waists are smaller and the bum looks bigger. And we try to use language that's more colloquial than what is right, like what should be used. So that encourages participation, a much more open participation. And we try to bring in a lot of humor here as well. How many girls in this class are being told that ab to tum jawan ho gayi ho? And get those expressions also, so that that line is definitely damaging, that ab jawan ho gayi ho to skirt mat pehno. It is definitely damaging in the social context, but these girls have not yet started facing it. Most of them, some of them have. So we use a damaging line in a non-threatening, in fact, in a humorous manner, which
What
kind
does
of
that line mean? Sorry, just so that we
that
can
line
understand.
means that now you're a young girl. So you say it in a manner that you're going to be more sexual about your body. Like the sexual connotation of this statement is very heavy. That now you're a young girl, so that means you're going to be more attractive to boys. You're probably going to go out of your way to attract boys. So that angle also. So so this is a very common line being told, at least to girls around in UP. So this is one line that every group associates with. So in fact, even when we are working with 15 and 16 and 17-year-olds, we start asking them that at what point, like how did your body look like when your mothers or grandmothers or aunties around your house started saying, ab tum jawan ho gayi ho. So by bringing that element of humor also, and by letting them know this is a line that even I have been told. So it is okay. We all go through the same thing. So let's start talking about it. So then we happily bring them into this conversation, and from there we start talking about their bodies, and then in a very relaxed and comfortable and casual manner we start talking about what is going to happen. And for young girls, like the pre-menarche girls, we make it a point to not talk a lot about getting pregnant and sperm coming in and all, and when do you not have periods, because that's like an overload. That, based on my understanding, that's going to be an overload. So already most of them have not started their periods and will start very soon, so might as well stick to what happens. And with them, again, depending on schools, in most cases we do not use, again, this is our stand, we do not believe that everyone needs to know the exact names of the different parts of the reproductive system, but they need to understand what's happening to their body. So that is what we stick to. We don't tell them names and all very explicitly. We let them understand what's going to happen to their body, and that it happens to all of us. And when you see blood, that's going to be amazing. It's going to be painful also. But so we let them know the scary parts, but in a manner that does not scare them away, because it is going to be scary. And we do not bring in this part of the conversation that when I was young, my mother didn't tell me and I was scared, which is true, but I don't need to tell them. Because then they start getting conflicting messages that you are trying to tell me that something nice is going to happen to my body and I'm going to be a young girl, but you're telling me it is scary. So to avoid conflicting thoughts and try to say the most important parts that we need to tell someone without scaring them away. Yeah, so that is something that we do. So if Serena and Swastika would like to add some more, then yeah, just.
I think, like, what really helps is also you can have a mixed group of like, the kids, like the girls who haven't yet started their periods, and those who have started, like, of the same age group. And that way they will feel more like comfortable and they're not scared, because in the same group only we can ask, like, how many of you all have started menstruating, and they raise their hand. And, like, then we tell them to share the experience, like how did they feel, like what was the situation when they first started their periods, and then slowly come back and, like, try to educate them, like saying, see, even they all, like, were young that time, they didn't have they didn't have periods like you all, but like slowly they started, and that way I can the environment can be more comfortable for them, and then can lead to less fear also. I think, the peer educator thing really works well.
I find this very interesting, Swastika, because based on my experience that I've had, I'm exclusively talking about Uttar Pradesh only. Every time that we've worked with the under 12 age group, when we've started out by asking, is there anyone who's on their periods, who started getting their periods, or have your parents have spoken about periods? Not one hand goes up. And by the end of the session, when we ask them again, so now just let me know how many of you are on your periods, and then the number of hands start going up. So initially there's also this fear and shame and stigma, and also probably I'm imagining that maybe parents have told them this is not something that you announce or discuss or you share with everyone. So it's really interesting that you are able to use peers in this context as educator. That's very nice.
Yes, I think that has really worked for us, like, and then yeah, so initially it's very difficult to, like, break the ice and have the conversation from them going. So slowly, like, you can build a like good rapport, and then share your own experience story, like, for example, like when I first started my periods, like such and such thing happened, and slowly you can break the ice, and then they open up.
I love that you say that, Swastika, and I think somebody else said it before too, but it's totally our approach too. Like, you model vulnerability, and when you show that you can be authentic and vulnerable and share your personal story, it really makes it okay for other people, and it's very powerful. So I think, like, even just one key practical takeaway is speak from the heart and personal experiences is, and then it also shows you're comfortable, for example, with words like vagina, if that's in your story, or period, or that whole body language and ease is really teaching in itself without actually directly giving. It's just by modeling. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Neha, did you have a question? You've popped up on our screen. Some games. Oh, games. Are there games? But we love games. Are there games specifically? Do you want to elaborate? What sort of games are you asking?
Yeah. For the actually ice breaking for small girls is a bit it's a big problem. Sometime I face. So basically, when we interact with small adults and girls, so what directly you should what should be the first point, what will be the first step in the session we should take? So that is my question. Some games or some activities or something else that is important that should be taken care of, something.
Neha, I just shared a link to a video. It is this song Hakuna Matata in Hindi. And so our belief at Project Hail is that we don't jump into the conversation we're here for. We jump into the creation of a safe and a happy space so that whoever the participants are, irrespective of their age and irrespective of the space we are sitting in, just by the energy that we are creating as a group by singing and dancing to non-period related songs at the beginning, it is going to help. So I've shared a link to this Hindi version of Hakuna Matata. I found it on YouTube and I've just copied it. So it's not even original, but it's a safe song in which we're all singing and dancing. And similarly, I sit on YouTube, spend a lot of time, figure out fun action songs to do. Sometimes we create our own. And till date, every session of ours has started with some games, some songs like these, just to establish this space as our space. And the one thing that we've made sure, and it's always worked for us, is the song that we pick, it has to be something where the physical movement, especially the spreading of your arms and if possible of your legs as well, happens. Because again, I'm talking only from a very UP restricted perspective. Our girls are told so often to not occupy their space, that you will never be able to take a group to asking questions till they're comfortable sitting in that space, like till they believe that this is their space. And how do you make people believe their space? By laughing and talking and shouting aloud. So we focus a lot on these additional factors in the periphery that helps us deliver our content. So in fact, I just got reminded of one incident that happened around 2017. We were in Kanpur for a facilitation, and that had that group was like a mixed group of mothers and daughters. That was one of the first times we did a mixed group like that, and the daughters were older girls, not young daughters. And while we were discussing the entire concept of period blood being dirty and all, one lady decided to share that when she was pregnant with her daughter was in the room, and she birthed her daughter. The mother-in-law was enraged, outraged. She didn't even want this lady to come back home with the child. And so what followed for the next couple of months was the mother used to not allow her to sit and eat with the rest of the family. She used to throw rotis and like a dirty utensil of curry. Used to be like she wouldn't want to touch that woman basically. And this lady was so affected by this treatment that she received that she fought with her entire family to name her daughter Shiksha. Shiksha means education. And it was so beautiful that she was able to bring this story into a conversation around period blood being dirty. So I think this intention also to create a space where the participants feel that they also have the space to share a story that kind of resonates with what is being discussed. Because we're talking about dirt and women body being dirty, and then there's this story of this girl who was born. So using these, like basically the power of a happy space, of a joyful learning space is what needs to be the focus on, much more than like obsessing about the content, because the content is exactly the same across all organizations working on menstrual hygiene. So more investment on us as facilitators or on our team of facilitators to become facilitators who can create that space that people are able to associate concepts.
Very good. Yeah, that's we were just writing notes and like adding to each other's, like the idea of making it their safe and happy space, so that again it's this idea which has been a thread between all these webinars of what do you leave behind, and if they have this memory even of that space where they were able to fling their arms wide and was joyful in the association with the topic, and that's really powerful because you're really leaving that behind. And also, Neha, I wanted to share that our first webinar was about preparing for a period, like a menstrual health education session. And so a lot of these icebreakery ideas came out then, and even the space, how you might arrange it. And so we're happy to share that recording with you if you like.
Okay, thank
I've
you.
already shared it with her. I think she got it. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Thank
Oh,
you.
very good.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Pranati.
You're great.
Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left. So this is last chance for anybody who wants to ask any further question or add any ideas to the topic today.
I'm thinking we should start our next session with Hakuna Matata.
It's such a happy song. Anybody?
I've also shared a link to a song that we've created on periods. So if anyone wants to use, you're free to use. Do share videos with us. We'd love to see how you used it. If you want to. If you don't want to just use the song, that's okay. And I think this song itself is also a revision in itself, what we've discussed largely in a session. And because again, we're singing and dancing on the exact information being given, that becomes another reason for someone to remember, because you're dancing on a period song. So that also adds on to the memory of a session, as you said.
I'm not sure if we're just like, should we watch it now? But I don't know if we have good enough internet. Should we try? Just for fun? Unless people, does anyone have any more questions?
Yeah.
Yes, we should try.
Yeah, let's try. Okay.
So this is the link you shared, Angana, with an activity we do to help girls talk creatively about periods. Is
The
that
one
link?
before that, the one before that, I guess.
Before. Oh, I'm not seeing it.
Oh, we don't. Can you resend it? Because when our computer just shut down briefly,
Yeah,
we lost
I'll
the
just-
chat history. Maybe do you want to play it on your screen, Angana, and screen share? We'll make you a co-host.
Yeah, that should be fine.
Okay, so I've just made you a co-host, so you can go ahead and screen share and.
Yeah,
And
just to
while
let you all
you're
know
doing
that
that-
I have created this song during a fellowship that I was doing outside of India. So a lot of people who are singing this song are non-Indians, non-Hindi speakers. So it sounds different, but we do this exact song. It's just for lyrics' sake, so that people who do not understand Hindi could also understand what we're trying to communicate through the English language. When we do it with children, it's much more fun.
I have no doubt.
Karuma Raya say again.
Hey, Medene, I Mahabari. Strong Lahenge. Kainge, Sag Takare. Harche Tintemen. Balenge Pan.
महावारी का अपना दूध में नहीं सुखाते
Girl, are you mad?
दर्द में प्रिस्क्रिप्शन वाली लेंगे दवाई बात करेंगे चुप्पी की विदाई
ख्याल रखेंगे नहीं करेंगे शर्म
खून है ये सा न रखो कोई भरम
Oh, I'm going to.
Ah, that was so cute.
So glad we watched
sweet.
that.
Very nice. Yeah. Just some great core messaging there in a very sweet and happy way.
And all of us, a lot of us are smiling, who I can see. So it
Yeah.
does what it's creating a safe and happy space. So, and it just, I think like the takeaway is it's so much of it's like the how we do it. The what is important, the facts, but actually really it's the how. How do you deliver it? How do you speak about it? How do people feel is like the most powerful message actually, even beyond the facts, which need to be accurate. But yeah, I really get a felt sense of that from all of you.
Well, I think we can close the session now unless anyone's got any burning questions. Last chance.
Befriend your periods.
Okay, I think that's a great closing takeaway message, I'd really love to thank you again, Angana, Swastika and Serena, for your energy, your preparation, for your just bringing the wisdom that you've all acquired through your work in the field and with women and girls on this topic. And yeah, it was just so evident from the way you were sharing, you know, just there's some real jewels of insight, and I think some really practical takeaways from this session for all of us. I mean, I certainly was busy taking a lot of notes as well, and just, you know, just some fun ideas of how to just create a much more kind of period positive culture overall. And yeah, really thank you for giving your time and energies to this series. We've got one more session next week, which will be the last in this 4-part series, and that's going to be on the topic of about the environment and how do we talk about kind of sustainable menstruation without sounding fanatic. So I hope that some of you will be able to join us for that session as well. It'll be the same link and the same time next Monday evening. And yeah, we'll have different, we've got, yeah, a different panel next week actually. And yeah, just thank you all for being with us today, whether it's your first time or whether you've been following the series. We're always happy to kind of see new faces and just to feel the growing movement of those of us who are really committed to co-learning and building a peer network of learning from each other, because I truly believe no one has the whole, has this all handled. Like, we're all very much growing and learning in this journey, and you know, we're doing this because we just love to learn from each of you. So thank you so much for giving your time and efforts to be here today, and we look forward to seeing you next week. And we'll share the link for this one's been recorded, and we'll have that available to share. And in fact, we're also going to be releasing the whole series on YouTube as well in the coming, once the series is finished. But if you want to get this presentation from us, just send an email to pranati@ecofemme.org and she'll happily send you the recording of this session or the earlier ones as well if you want. So yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, and look forward to seeing you all next week. All lovely evening. And Lawrence just shared Pranati's email ID. So if you want to get the recording.
Everyone. It was really
Thanks for your
Thanks,
time. We
everyone.
loved this session.
Thank
I thought it was a
you.
really
Thank
great
you.
interactive.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.